Welcome to Why Are You Awake? Paul Farahvar here, your host. Sorry for the delay on the episodes, but we had some production issues. We are back on track. This week features musician Dave Tamkin, who I've known for years. Make sure you follow him at the info below. Also follow me if you aren't already. If you're listening to this episode, go over to my YouTube page at youtube.com/PaulFComedy and watch us live. Speaking of listening to it, the first 4 minutes, you will notice that the sound isn't that great. Well, the microphones weren't on. Again, production issues we have resolved. But otherwise, it's great. You'll still hear us, but it just sounds like we're far away. And then everything comes back to normal roughly 3.5, 4 minutes in. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram. Follow me on my website, paulfcomedy.com, for my upcoming dates in your city. And follow along on youtube.com/PaulFComedy. Also, don't forget to check out our sponsor. Hey gang, as some of you know, I used to be a practicing lawyer in Chicago. I no longer practice, but from time to time, I need a lawyer. And when I need a lawyer, I call my friend Scott Shapiro. Scott Shapiro has been practicing law for over 25 years in Chicago. He does it all, from workers' compensation to personal injury, employment issues, and even entertainment law and contract needs. If you need a lawyer, call my friend Scott. 312-648-8800. That's 312-648-8800. Or you can email him at scott@scottshapirolegal.com. Tell him I sent you. You're welcome. It's time for another edition of Why Are You Awake? Paul Farahvar here, your host. This week we have something unique, something different, something special. I've known this person for 20 some years, I believe.
Since I've had an AOL account.
Dave motherfucking Tamkin here. No P. Musician extraordinaire, Chicago legend. You're here.
I don't believe anything you just said.
Did you notice anything? This is the Dave Tamkin merch.
That's 2008.
This is 2008? No, it's before that.
I mean, maybe.
This is during the first Bush administration, I believe. First of all, thanks for doing the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Dave and I go back from, this is music days, when I used to manage and produce live music and was kind of taking a step away from playing in bands. Although we'll talk about that too.
Were you really?
I mean, I was trying not to. I was trying to insert myself into every possible show. I don't even remember how we met. I think I know how we met, but you tell me if you remember. I know that you had sent me or gave me your CD.
Yep.
And your name kept coming up. A lot of people. I was managing Dan Dara and Air the Set at Caution, and I started producing shows around that. And somebody gave me your CD. I'm like, yeah, this is good.
I remember Tato making the introduction.
Tato did, okay.
Yes, and he was like, you have to work with Paul Farahvar.
Okay.
And then from there, I was probably aggressive or maybe just trying to
persistent.
trying to make new friends.
No. It's funny because I'm like that with comedy now. Your drive was so strong, and I used to tell other bands, I'd be like, this is what you need to be like.
I guess it's weird to hear you say that, only because we've known each other for 20 plus years now. Mm-hmm. To go back to that time, to think that, and to know how hard you have worked through the years, to say that I've seen you bust your butt the same way in so many different levels, but going to those shows and trying to get your attention, it's a compliment now knowing that, because at the time I had no idea.
Your period of time, people know me as a person on stage. I talk about being in bands and being kicked out of bands, and some of those bands I was kicked out of, I wasn't really in.
But we've also played the House of Blues together.
Yes.
In front of Freddie Jones' band.
Yes, and that's one of the top 10 nights of my life, thanks to you, Dave.
Oh, well, thanks to you for booking it and making that happen.
So here's a great example. So I was playing in bands. I stopped playing in bands. I started managing bands. I would book bands to open for national touring bands at House of Blues, Metro, Double Door. Freddie Jones Band, which is one of Chicago's finest bands, my favorite band when I was a kid. They were gonna play, and then they said, who do you want to open? And I was like, I know someone that'll do it. And then we submitted you, and they said that's fine, but he can't be the full band. For some reason,
well, I think it's just easier too from a transition point in House of Blues to be like, get these guys off the stage.
You had to set up in front, and it was Brian and you, and I said, can I play with the band?
Absolutely.
And you were like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So I almost made it like you couldn't say no. Did you feel like you could say no? It's 20 years. This is like 10 plus years ago. How uncomfortable were you with me being never playing in your band and saying, hey, I'm going to play bass for your biggest show, sold out shows at the House of Blues?
What are we talking about right now? We're talking about you being at that show. And I would hope to look back at my life. I have made decisions with our friend group and our peers to say that we remember these times. We make good decisions. We're making life happen. So I don't think at the time I was like, felt like pressed to. I was like, absolutely, let's go have some fun.
I think that you had no choice, though.
Oh, I would agree with you, but my mind, mindset.
I booked you, and I was like, yeah, but the caveat is I'm going to play on stage for 2 or 3 songs or whatever.
Absolutely, but I justified it as, what a great time. I mean, we were backstage. We had a great night.
Oh my God, that was like my two best friends.
We're still talking about it.
Yeah, it was. I still look at those pictures. It was so much joy, and I don't think I did horribly. Did I do bad? I don't remember. I wish there was tape of it.
Honestly, at that point, I don't think anyone was.
I was playing bass.
We were looking at each other saying, hey, we're at the House of Blues, having a great time. Because that place treats you like Prince. You walk into that like elevator.
Yeah, that was one of the best days. I got to play at the House of Blues, and then I did it again after that again. I think I did the same deal to Jeffrey Goldford.
Yeah,
I was like,
which he's still crushing it.
Yeah,
I know.
So fun. That period of my life was like, you guys were so fun to work with, and it was fun. I was managing bands. It was like the coolest. I was just drinking.
As I have grown up and have continued to play music throughout my life for different reasons. At the time, probably to get paid, to make a living doing it. Now to express myself, to make better music. And you have a friend who shows up and says, I will book you at the Metro. I will book you at the Double Door. I will book you at
Lincoln Hall,
at House of Blues, at Shuba's. I don't know if I would have ever played without you. It just blows my mind sometimes that you did such hard work to make the Chicago scene something special for local musicians that worked their ass off. If you didn't draw, or if you didn't do this, or if you didn't get paid so much, it was on you.
From a business standpoint, we helped the community, but I think in a lot of ways we destroyed the music scene as well.
Well, I would love to hear your point on that.
Well, because there were bands that could draw, like our reputation at some of the clubs was, from the club standpoint, it's like we would book certain bands on a showcase. So we'd have 4 bands. And if we had like a legit band, like our power hitters were like Dave Tamkin, Chris Burley, Jeffrey Goldford, Dan Dara, Air the Side of Caution. We would have these other bands that supported them who maybe weren't as good, but they would bring a shit ton of people. And so these people would play their one and only time at these venues that are sacred.
Yeah.
House of Blues, Double Door, rest in peace, Metro. We brought them to a show which they maybe should not have played at. That's the argument. But I would reward those bands because they were hardworking bands, even if they weren't artistically good. But that happens with everything, right? Like bringer shows. We do it in comedy. Book this guy to open your show. He's going to bring 30 people. I'm like, that works for me. It's like, so there is an art and a business. It is a business.
Has that changed for you?
As a creative?
At the time, no, you were creative then. I don't think any of us realized how much you were creative at the time.
I was creative business-wise. I was coming up with ways to make sure we all made money, but not like writing music and anything like that. It's
not only writing music, writing comedy, writing entertainment.
Oh, yeah, that's now.
Putting yourself out there. Okay, so someone can bring 30 people to open, or you've listened to them and you're like, this person is on point. I don't care if they bring 5. I want the people that came to see me to hear this person.
Yeah, I think that for comedy it's different, right? Because if people came to support their friend
Is it different?
It is different because as soon as their friend is done, they're unless it's like we're like-minded people, they don't care about me. So I rather have someone that's really good. And also, it's my show. If I'm headlining, it's my show. And I think that the people who take me on the road who are really good, I like to think they think it's because I'm funny, because they don't ask me to promote the shows. Let's talk about you. You grew up in Hoffman Estates or Mount Prospect?
Mount Prospect. Yep.
Suburb of Chicago.
Yep.
What were you like in high school?
Oh, probably annoying, I'm sure.
Were you a musician back then?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I got kicked out of jazz band for turning up my volume too loud and not being able to play the right chords.
Playing guitar, and you had jazz band?
I mean, I started guitar probably 4th grade. I didn't make the talent show. And then I came back the next day for auditions, and I lip-synced to Chuck Berry. I got accepted for that. So they were like, as long as you don't turn your volume up and just lip sync, you're fine. I'm going to tell you, Paul, music was easy for me, ever. It's something I have to do 1,000 times to get it right. That's just how it is.
Let's talk about high school. Like socially, were you like popular, or were you like this nerdy musician kid that was awkward?
I would like to think I was kind of cool, but I'm not sure.
What do other people say?
Haven't done a poll recently. Much like you, I would say my freshman year, I was already putting shows together with the senior year band in the theater and saying, let's do $2 tickets. We give $1 to the community center across the street.
Oh, so you were like a shyster. I wasn't like that in high school. Was music your life, or were you like playing sports, or were you drinking? What were you doing?
Not freshman year. I wrestled, I got carried out on a stretcher.
Were you drinking in high school?
I mean, my first drink was sophomore year with the gymnastics team.
With the ladies? How were you doing?
I wouldn't say any ladies until probably sophomore, junior year.
It wasn't a priority to you. See, for me, I just wanted a girlfriend so bad.
I wouldn't say it wasn't a priority. I think the situations were so tragic. I don't know.
What do you mean? Why were they tragic?
The reason I was signed up for gymnastics, because I was so small and so skinny. And everyone was so taller than me at an early age. I don't know, like girlfriends weren't, it was more music. It was more hanging out with my guy friends. It wasn't even like on my radar.
Were you playing in bands? I know you said jazz band, but like high school?
Since 7th grade.
Really?
I mean, we would play the variety show in 7th grade. 8th grade,
wow.
Our guitar player went to Rolling Meadows, and we said, Ted, come back to 8th grade and play the show with us. Got permission for him to come play.
Were you the lead guitarist and singer, or what were you?
I was a lead guitar player. My friend Jeff was the lead singer.
But you're a really good guitarist, and that makes sense because you did it for so long.
Well, it's very nice of you to say it.
I don't say it.
Not at all. Honestly, you've never given me a compliment, so you're correct.
I'm not saying I didn't. I'm just saying it wasn't from me.
I was very percussive. No one else was playing like I was playing. But I would not consider myself a great guitar player, especially playing with so many awesome musicians.
I remember very vividly the shows that you did at Double Door. I remember looking at your lineup, and you had the best. You had the best guitarist. You had a keyboard player she could sing and she could play. You had a drummer who was awesome, and it's called Dave Tamkin Band, so it's your fucking band.
It was Dave Tamkin and Company.
Okay,
and I felt like this is the company I keep, and I'm proud of the company I keep.
But you had to pay them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you lost money on those shows.
Yes.
I remember when I was managing Dan Dare, for example, he'd want to hire all these people. Like, well, you're going to lose money, so no, we're not doing that. Because I was his manager. I mean, in hindsight, I get it. And I know Jeff Golfer was the same way, where he's like, I want to hire these people. And I was like, no, I'll just play bass with you. He's like, no, it's not the same. That's how he kicked me out of the band, motherfucker. But anyway, I remember at the anniversary parties we did for Shoeshine Boy Productions, I would challenge bands to play one of my favorite songs, Queen, Under Pressure. And you guys did it once. I was like, this is fucking awesome. You guys did a great version of it.
Well, if it wasn't for Michelle to sing that play tuba on it and piano, everything. It would have never worked. So she saved the day on that.
After high school, you go to college, you go to DePaul here. What were you doing there?
It was music. I got kicked out of Southern SIU, Carbondale.
Oh, I didn't know you went to
year.
Southern.
Oh, yeah, 12% of freshmen graduate.
Yeah, it's
12%.
a party school.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome.
What did you go there for?
I went there for music business. So I got kicked out, went to Harper for like a summer. Loved it. I got accepted to the Paul classical program and just could not keep up. The musicians were so good, and I was playing shows all around Chicago
at the
every
same
night.
time.
Yeah, at the time, like you said, drinking, hanging out, try to get up in early, go to vocal class, and you can't. Ripping the night, fantastic.
What were you doing late at nights?
Playing shows all over. Like I had a fake ID. I mean, I would go wherever I could to play music.
So the shows would have to end at like 12 or 1.
Yeah.
What would you do after the shows? Just go party?
Yeah, whatever house was available or van was available. You just kept going. And then when you play shows, too, the bar closes, so you just hang out. And then they shut the windows down. They're like, oh, what are we doing? Shots? Everybody? Light a cigarette? Whatever we have to do. I
do miss that aspect of the music scene where we would get to hang out at all the clubs with the staff. And most of the clubs were really cool to the Shoeshine Boy bands and would just drink for free and just party. And it was like, this is way more fun than chasing tail at a club downtown or whatever.
You think of that, though, and then think about if you had to play the show the next day. Would you still be there? If you had a comedy set?
Yeah, I would still do it. I mean, back then you could pull it off because you're young. Your body can recover.
Can't do that anymore.
No. If I drink now, I'm 2 days, I'm still out of it. When did you grow from the part of like after shows where you're partying, where you started doing like creative stuff? Or did you ever do that?
Absolutely. I think on tour, when we would travel the country, you get done with a show, get back to the hotel. It was nice. Play around a little bit. See what songs worked. Just you'd have some drinks and just play or outside. You know, if you were having a cigarette, you would just bring your guitars, hang out, and a lot of time was spent around the country just playing shows in the van. I think when you're that young, you're writing things about your life. As you get older, things happen in your life as far as losing parents, losing friends, realizing trauma when you're young. You don't want to write about that stuff right out of the gate. You have to figure that stuff out. After a show now, you're like, oh, you have this adrenaline. What do you want to do? Grab a cup of coffee. Let's go have a beer, maybe, hang out. What could we have done better in that show? Oh, we missed this part. We missed that part. Those conversations never happened when we were younger.
You're doing that now?
Oh, absolutely. I've learned that from you a little bit over the years, just talking about shows and even a comedy set. You can hear yourself. And even Steve Martin wrote about this in his autobiography that he could hear himself slur, or he wanted to listen back to the tape to say, what can I have done better? I am there now for no other reason than I want to do better than what I did.
A lot of comedians go back and listen to their sets. That's the one time I can't listen to my set. Like after a show, I cannot do it. That's the time where I'm like, I just go get food, and I'm just like...
So you're a late night eater?
Yeah, I eat late at night.
Like sushi?
No, I'll just get... There's nothing open. When you're in Tulsa, last week I was in Tulsa, everything's closed at 10 o'clock. Your options are limited. I had pizza late at night. It was the worst fucking pizza I've ever had.
Like not crispy, just like sloppy?
It was... It just didn't taste like pizza. It was like there was no tomato sauce, there was no cheese. It was like doughy bread, and they included ranch dressing. We didn't ask for ranch dressing, but I was like, oh, they know it tastes bad. They're like, this is ranch is gonna make it taste better.
You never asked for ranch?
No, they just included it. I just feel like that.
I love ranch.
I do too. Everyone, I mean.
Yeah, but you're saying they do it because
I was with my uncle.
Preemptive.
Yeah, my uncle's like, why did they give us ranch? Who puts ranch on pizza? I was like, yeah, I don't usually do. I don't ever do it. I take a bite. I'm like, let me see if. I'm like, oh, okay, it's just bread with ranch dressing. It's fine. But they knew.
How do you feel about pizza the next morning with eggs on it?
No.
What? Sunny side up, crisp it in the toaster?
That defeats the whole. If you're gonna make eggs, then why would you eat the pizza?
You put the egg on the pizza. Let the yolk.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Oh my gosh!
Who told you how to do this? I've never heard that.
I don't think anyone told me.
You just do that?
Yeah.
You learn this on your own?
You toast it up, put it down, put an egg on top.
How did you learn to do this?
Because it's breakfast food now. You got the bread, you got the sausage, you got the cheese, just little tomatoes.
But you're making the egg.
I mean.
Why wouldn't you just get regular toast?
You challenge this on. You challenge me now. I am going to tell you in a week. You're going to do it. You're going to have leftover pizza. You're You're going to be like, let's toast it up and put sunny side up egg and let the yolk burst and just eat it up with a fork. Unbelievable.
Has anyone else but you done this?
Only everyone around me in the morning that I force them to eat it.
I mean, the whole purpose of having leftover food is so you don't have to make food. So if you're already doing the activity of making eggs, why wouldn't you just make the eggs with like regular toast?
Because you're only making half the situation happen.
No.
Okay.
So after DePaul, you become a full-time musician?
Right away. I did not graduate with a music degree. I could not pass the vocal oral training, like sing, play piano with your right hand, tap something else on your left hand.
You couldn't do it?
Couldn't do it. I got a D. I got a D for Dave.
That was the test?
The one class that I could not pass, and we were on trimesters. So in order for me to graduate, I would have to wait for 2 more semesters to go by to take this class over again. So instead of waiting, I just took business classes for 2 years and then graduated with a business degree.
Okay, so you still graduated, just not music.
Right, but it was kind of...
You get your business degree. You couldn't pass the vocal test.
No.
Did that make you uncomfortable about your vocals?
Oh, yeah, I cried.
Pussy.
I am a crier. Like, I was emotionally, like, I just couldn't believe what was happening when he's like, you're not passing.
Did you try to, like, talk him out of it?
Oh, yeah. He's probably like, you smell like whiskey. You know? I mean, I'm not sure if that's what he said, but I mean, you know, you're 21, 22, or like playing gigs every night in Chicago, sometimes twice a night. We were the House of Blues band.
Oh, that's right. You said you had a regular gig on the main floor, right?
Yeah, every like Wednesday through Friday, and then we would play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night as well.
I forgot about that about you. You had like regular paying gigs. You're really good about that.
It was like 8 shows a week.
Booking is one aspect of things. Managing was finding you opportunities. And every year I would go to LA a couple times and I would pitch bands to labels. And that was what those were the only opportunities back then for musicians. Now, you know, licensing had started. We did some licensing stuff, but most of the stuff was like trying to get you guys deals, record deals. For comedy, you need a manager to find you, like be like, hey, you want to do late night on Kimmel? Those are the people. You need those people that have the connections. And with music, we actually did have those connections. We, after fucking 20 years of like emailing them all the time, they're like, all right, who do you got? So it was different. So you do need that.
Do you remember the one movie you did get us?
Summer School or something like that? What was it called?
We have it in the summer.
Summer Camp?
Summer Escape, something like that. They called me for a signature. And I read the script, and I'm like, there's no script here.
It was a music
like
licensing?
placement.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I said, how do I know that this is not a porn? And they're like, it's not a porn, Dave. Just sign the papers. And then like a year later, I was playing in Yorkville, Illinois, and this guy came up with 4 DVDs. And he's like, check out this movie. Your songs are all over. And it was a porn.
Are you kidding me? Seriously?
Yes.
I don't remember that. I mean, I remember summer something.
You didn't make anyone sign the papers.
You just got the deal.
You were just introducing us. So like someone came along and probably took advantage of my ignorance.
What song did they use?
Oh, there's 4 on it. And I remember after playing the show that night when the guy came in with the DVDs, I had 4 friends of mine, and we went to this house and we were watching the porn, but we were fast forwarding through all the sex scenes just to hear the songs, like when they're setting up camp or when they're driving through the mountains. And his wife came down like, "What are you guys watching?" Like, we're not watching anything. We're just fast forwarding. You guys watching porn?
Kind of.
Not technically. We're not.
Was it a full porn or was it just like?
I still have. I mean,
I bet some of those are comedians now. Some of those are artists.
I mean, I'll send it to you. But
I don't remember that. I do remember the other one that I did. I kind of helped supervise with Ari Hess was on it too.
Yep.
What was that one called? Fresh Tracks did it, I think.
I do remember that.
Yeah, we created those opportunities, and then later the music scene just totally changed, and I couldn't keep up.
What was it for you that you were like, okay, after booking all these bands for so long, supporting all these Chicago acts, that you're more of a friend than an adversary?
I was a babysitter.
Yeah, pretty much. And you're like, okay, now I'm going to go on my own creative endeavor.
I just started doing law. I was a lawyer, and then comedy happened by accident. But this is not my story today. We're not talking about me. We'll talk about that after the podcast.
Do you ever talk about this on the podcast?
I'll tell you what happened for the music part of it. Was I realized that I was investing all this time into artists, and then they were sometimes not as invested. Now with you were very invested in your career, but other people would be like, I'm just going to get married and have kids. I'm like, I just fucking spent 3 years getting us to this deal. You just need to just go a little further. And I remember one show, and you were there. We were doing Old St. Pat's with Ben Folds. You were on that show, right?
Guster, too.
Guster and Ben Folds, yeah. And I ran into Ben Folds again, who I had met 10 years prior. It was like a whole fucking cool thing. And the other bands all went home. And you were the only one that stuck around and like just hung out with the bands and like probably made friends with them, right? Did you hang out with them?
They were fantastic.
They're still your friends, right? And everyone else went home like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is how you they saw your show and they want to talk to you about your show. Don't go home. And I remember I was so mad that I threw my phone after talking to someone. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is going to drive me nuts. I started trying to write my own music and stuff for a while. And I was like, oh, I'm not good enough.
So how do you feel the parallel to that when I'm living in Denver, Boulder at the time?
Yeah.
And you come down and you play and it's you. You're not dependent on anybody else.
Yeah, it was great.
But how is that for you to be like, okay, as a comedian, it's up to you to make this happen?
A lot of people talk about the difference between music and comedy. And I've done both, right? There's two things. The positives are it's just you. So you don't have to worry about other people's egos. And I just watched this amazing documentary about Tragically Hip. You're in a relationship with these people. It's like a marriage, but without the sex or with less sex, as people would say. With comedy, it's just you. So you can make your own decisions and you don't have a team unless you get to a certain level where people rely on you. Mm-hmm. There's pros and cons to that, right? In music, if you have a bad show, you're like, oh, well, they didn't like our style of music. Or the drummer had a bad show, or, my voice was off because I drank too much. With comedy, if they don't like you, if they don't like the show, it's you. Like, you're bombing, it's you. And they don't like you personally because, at least for me, I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about my life. And they're like, oh, this guy sucks. There's pros and cons.
So from a management perspective, you said you're looking for management.
Uh-huh.
I found that trying to manage myself at the time to say, hey, we deserve X amount of money, or we're going to bring this many people. It's a reflection on the band. If I have a confrontation, that fight is between us. It is not one person away. So how do you deal with that as a comedian? Like, if anything goes sideways, that's not even about your set.
I deal with it all the time. You don't have that separation. I just did a show where it was dead. We only had like 20 people, and by it's just my fucking show. I was the headliner. There's nothing you can do. So it's a little different because most of the places are cool. I had a situation where I had to cancel shows because I got a huge opportunity, and the guy went fucking ballistic, and he just started fucking calling me all these things. He's like, you're unprofessional. I'm like, well, actually, no, I handled this very professionally. And he's like, you don't know what it's. I'm like, actually, I was in your boat for years because I used to manage bands and I book shows, and I still book comedy shows, so I know what you're doing. And I came up with like a way to resolve the issue, and he was just not hearing it.
And that's a benefit to you to know to never play there again.
The difference is when you're presented for comedians, when you're presented with opportunities that are, you don't know which one to take. And a manager will be like, cancel that. Like, this one was a no-brainer, but what if it was a little different? Like, I don't know those variables. I talk it through with other comedians or more seasoned people. So I have that. But with a manager, they'll be like, yeah, you're going to go on tour with so-and-so.
And if the manager is talking to that person, it's not a reflection of you. So you could,
there's a distance.
You could go back and play that same venue where that guy's cussing out the manager, not you.
Could blame the manager, be like, oh, my manager's an asshole. And a lot of comedians will be like, they're like, oh, but we're supposed to provide. He's like, yeah, I don't know, my booker. And he's like, yeah, I totally did that purposely because they need that distance. And there's a positive to that. You were pretty good. Well, obviously because you had a business degree from DePaul, but you're pretty good at, like, we never really got into it, did we?
I don't think so. But after
I remember you were feisty about stuff, but I love talking to you about it because I can explain it to you. Whereas other people were like, they didn't understand.
You were awesome at always taking the time to explain it. I look back now going, I wish I was better at understanding it. Like, I don't even know if I would have approached you knowing what I know now.
It was just funny because a lot of people thought we were like like I was a lawyer, so I was like, I'm always trying to look out for people. I treated all the people as clients, and so like if someone fucked over one of us, I'd be like, okay, they fucked us over, and I would confront people. And I remember we did that a couple of times. I remember I looked back at our old texts when we started texting for this, and there was one where you framed the Shoeshine Boy check for Lincoln Hall or something.
And that was recent too. And I'll be honest,
that's insane to me.
There is there's a little piece of my heart in that, and I want you to know this, that my dad had passed away a month before that.
Okay.
And Lincoln Hall came up, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Like, oh, he asked me to do it. Paul's, anything for Paul. And Brian, one of my best friends for 20 years, handsome and drummer, he's like, I don't know how you doing. I'm like, I'll get through it. And I remember like oversleeping that day. Got in the car right away. I actually, again, like not even a month after my dad has passed, just started bawling. And he's like, can you get through this gig? And I'm like, I'm going to. Paul Farahvar. I'm not going to let Paul Farahvar down. So I get to the gig, and then at the end, I get the check, which, I mean, February, probably Ice Age.
Was it a dead show? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I mean, there was really.
Not a lot
I
of
mean,
people
there
there.
was 4.
Were you headlining it?
No.
Oh, okay.
But there was 4 people on the bill.
On the bill.
On the bill, excuse me. It was a $25 check, which was reasonable, for like what happened that night.
That's insane.
And just the emotional struggle that I went through that day to play that gig, I framed it, and I have it at my house. And
I didn't know the backstory. That makes it worse. Now I feel worse.
But no,
let me pay you for this podcast.
But it meant so much to me that like after so many years too, like what you show up when like life can be so finite, and experiencing that like a month later, and you call and you're like, can you make this gig work? And I'm like, yes, I'm going to make this work. And then Brian's like, can you please stop crying? Like, we're going to get to the gig.
I didn't remember the part about your father.
I mean, I would never explain that to you, but I'm just saying now. That's why when I look at it, I remember you, I remember Brian, I remember my dad, and I'm like, this is what you show up for. It's not the $25 check. It's the experience of keeping your word, playing a show, playing the best music you can, and honoring your relationships.
And Brian and I were in a band that I didn't get kicked out of called Becky Likes Tigers.
We talked about it last night over sushi.
Oh, yeah?
He loved it.
It was such a fun show. We were like, it was just a cover band. It was so much fun. Chris Burley was in it, and Dave. So fun. We just created this persona. Brian's so fun. I wonder, I got to ask him how bad I was on bass, because he had to deal with me on bass, and that I always feel so bad. I'm like, am I fucking this up?
You're asking the wrong person. He's always got a smile on his face and just happy to play drums and be there. So
Yeah, he's just
he just probably enjoyed your company.
I was fun.
Yeah.
That I could bring. I might not have been talented, but I was fun on stage. I could create fun. So now you're doing like responsible stuff. You guys are like, what did we do wrong with the song? What about the times where you didn't? Because I thought back on this. I don't remember a time where you were drunk and I had to like, you're wasted. I don't remember that. Were you just always a good drunk?
Not the times that I remember that I wasn't a good drunk, but I always loved watching the sun come up. And I think cocaine was introduced to my life when I was like 15, but I never touched it.
Oh, okay.
And I saw what it did.
What, you were introduced to it?
Yeah, like it was around me.
Oh, okay.
It looked so fun that I was scared of it.
Okay.
Because I could already watch the sun come up without it. So I never tried it. But then shrooms kind of came up probably, I don't know, in SIU probably.
I've never done shrooms.
Oh my God, dude, microdose is the way
Everyone
to go.
talks about it.
Just put a smile on your face, little air in your step, little feather in your hat, a bee in your bonnet.
I just liked cocaine. I think that's so much funner.
I mean, I'm sure it's unbelievable. But I think that drinking through that time, there's plenty of times I could remember that I had way too much. I would keep going. After that House of Blues, I remember watching the sun come up on Lakeshore Drive. Ann and I got a hotel, and now 15 years, my wife, we went to Lakeshore Drive and just watched the sun come up, and we just would hang out all the time. And she wouldn't do it either. Drinking was something I loved. It was fun. It always put me in a good mood. I'm sure I was drowning some kind of sorrow in my life or trauma. But,
I remember people couldn't tell when I was wasted except for the staff at the double door.
I don't remember that of you ever.
Yeah, because I was good at hiding it.
Yeah.
But Dumbledore would know. Jesse, the sound guy, would be like, we like when you host the shows, when I'd host the anniversary parties, because they would see me gradually get more and more drunk as I was introducing the bands.
What about weed?
I never was a big weed guy. In high school, in college, I liked it. Drugs affect me. Weed would make me paranoid.
Yeah, me too.
Even when they say sativa and all this stuff,
Yeah,
I'm like, they all fucking suck to me.
Indica in the couch.
Is that what that means?
Yeah. Like it just
It's
no,
supposed
yeah,
to-
it's sativa is
Sativa energy.
Yeah.
See, like whatever it was the opposite.
Living-
And cocaine mellows me out.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I think
So
it'd
all
be
drugs
awesome.
affect me. I probably have ADHD. I just
Yeah.
got tested for. I'm waiting for the results.
Well, with being tested with ADHD is Adderall.
So I tried Adderall. I tried someone's Adderall recently. I was like, oh, this is great. Like I feel like I can pay attention now. And they're like, you have it. And I was like, well, let me see. So I took the test. It's like a 5-hour test. Have you done?
I have, and
I just took it. It's fucking insane. Everything felt like a trick. Like they were playing. One lady was on her computer on the side. I'm like, is this part of the test? She's like, oh no, I'm sorry. Is this loud? I'm like, is this part of the test now? like I was all paranoid. And she's like, no. I'm sorry. I'm just watching her. She's a trainee. I'm like, I'm so fucking confused right now. It felt like it was.
well, you shouldn't be able to if you have ADHD because it's 5 hours fucking long.
Yeah. Did you have it?
I did.
Are you
Yeah.
taking Adderall now?
I had for a while, and then it was too much. Like after 3 months, it was like, this is.
You were used to it and became addicting, or?
I wouldn't say addicting. It was like I don't need to be this up all the time.
But you can pick when you take it, or you just stop taking it.
It was time release, so it would like release generally out through the day, and it was just too much for me.
So you don't take it,
I don't
even
take
though
it
you know
anymore.
you need it.
Yeah,
What do you do now then instead?
no dose.
Is there still Nodos on the line?
I mean, I got
I didn't even know that was
I
still
got a whole
thing.
bottle in my car.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
Remember
it's,
Vivarin?
yes, it's
That's
just
what I used to do to
one
study in
caffeine.
college.
Especially like with touring now, still like long drives. Like
How often are you playing now? Because you're like a husband and shit.
I'm gonna take just a negative connotation to that.
It is
as
a
far
negative
as
connotation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You're like an adult.
I stopped touring in 2008 because I found someone that I love spending more time with than I did like on the road.
It's gay. No, I'm just just kidding.
Maybe before
So gay. No, I'm just kidding. How many years did you tour?
10 years
Okay.
after college, and then I took a break and then started traveling overseas. Would do Ireland, and then Ann and I would play a city one night.
She's not playing with you.
No, but she's my best friend
Supporting.
and someone I get to hang out with, and
Yeah.
you know,
Your wife. You're calling your wife your best friend.
I would call her my best friend first. And I have to say, one of the best things that I've learned about being married over the last 15 years is that I have never stopped dating her. And I would say that she has never stopped dating me. Because I think that's the time when, and plus we don't have kids, so we had the luxury of doing that. Probably most people don't. You have to keep things fun and lively and beneficial for each party.
Is she a night owl? Like
Oh, yeah.
does she a creative or she has like a regular? She's a.
I would she. Yeah, edit that out too.
I'm keeping all this shit in.
I would say she is definitely a creative and definitely a night owl.
You have a relationship with another person who understands you not only because they're your best friend, but also because they're also up. Does she have a 9 to 5
She
job?
does.
But she still stays up with you.
She would go long haul if
Okay.
it was fun.
So the
for
relationship makes sense. If she's a natural night owl, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
clients. Okay.
But you toured for 10 years, and then in 2008, you decided you're going to kind of give it up to become a family guy.
I wouldn't say.
I mean, you're still
You're right.
playing,
You're
but
right.
not the same.
I gave it up. You're right. Yes, I did not.
You didn't give it up, but you're not pursuing it actively anymore.
Yeah,
after
it wasn't
2008.
attractive for me to be on the road for 2 months. Wasn't when I'm enjoying myself here with this person. Why would I do that?
Oh, you were living in Denver at the time?
I did. I moved to Denver to date her. We met in Chicago. She
How'd
moved
you guys meet?
at Mrs. P and Me in Mount Prospect.
What's that?
It's this also awesome local bar that we would hang out at, and she's like, "Take it easy. I'm moving to Denver in like 6 weeks." I'm
Did you
like,
know her before that from who the fuck hangs out in Mount Prospect? Why was she there?
I mean, she was living up the street on Algonquin.
And then you moved to Denver for her.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I got my own place and said, hey, we'll date for 6 months, see how it goes. And I was touring, so I'm like,
Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Then after 6 months of that, coming back, we moved to Boulder together in the same place. And
you were doing music, though, in Denver and stuff.
Yeah, full
and
time.
That's a great place for music, too, right?
Loved it. Denver is a beautiful music community. So is Boulder. All the musicians are more welcoming in a way that Chicago wasn't.
Really?
Time. Yeah.
Did you feel like you wore out your welcome here?
I felt like it was more of a competition here. But that could have been myself, in the way I viewed it. I don't feel that anymore.
No. I'm not doubting it. I wonder what happened to the scene here because I'm so out of it.
I was trying to raise up the community, and people had negative things to say about me in a way that I couldn't control, but I couldn't change if I didn't know about it. Open communication wasn't there.
Oh, I do remember some drama with a bunch of bitches back then. I kind of remember vaguely something. I don't remember your name ever coming up.
Well, I'm sure I could have done better if I knew about it, which I've learned later in life that
what were they
you could
making
only
fun of you for?
I want to say fun, but just had their own.
Saying you're overrated.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I play with musicians that would be like, "Oh, you want me to dumb it down? I get it. Dumb it down.
Dumb it down.
Yeah. Don't play so many notes. Don't play so many chords."
Oh, they're saying you play too many notes?
No, that I would ask them not to play so many notes or not. Oh, I'll dumb it down. Oh, probably because they were such a more superior musician than I was.
I feel like a lot of those bands that we worked with too were kind of fucked in a way because there were so many people, and it's the same thing with comedy too. There were so many people doing the same thing in every city. Like I remember going to New Orleans for like a bachelor party. I was like, oh, this band sounds like Dave. And I'm like, God, this is fucking, everyone's doing this shit now. And it's like, you guys started it before that. I felt like you needed to fucking adapt. And same thing with comedy now. It's like, everyone's like, oh, we got to do crowd work or whatever the fuck it is. But
did you find that same problem with radius clauses with comedy? I learned that from you as well earlier in the day. Like
there is a radius clause.
You can't play Shubas and then try to play double door next week.
We did that for Shoeshine Boy. Yeah. And it's funny. People will be like, this is bullshit. And I remember explaining it to a comedian. I'm like, well, this is why they do that. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But you can play this venue because no one's going to go all the way to fucking whatever, Yorkville to see you.
Yeah.
But we used to do that. And that's funny because sometimes the venues did have the rule and sometimes they didn't. But we just put it in all our contracts. And it made sense.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. God, I'm so smart.
I end up booking a room called the Walnut Room in Denver.
I remember
and
that.
I took a lot of those lessons.
You stole
from
my fucking contract.
I did, totally. And I would even cancel gigs. I'm like, you're playing here the next day? What are you doing?
Oh, we never can. We'd always try to work it out. We were nice. Maybe that's why people were talking bad about you because you were being a dick. Heavy hand. It's the Napoleon syndrome.
I mean, I've canceled plenty of shows because people don't disrespect the contract.
Were you the booker at the club?
Me and my friend Mike.
But you were also playing there?
I would play there now and then, like once every 6 months, only because of that rule. But and then you find out after a while you get more connected in the music community because you have something to offer. And then you're like, would I be friends with these people if
you weren't booking the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is with comedy too. Like I started booking my own shows, but the reason I booked the shows was so I had a show when I'm in town. But then people are like, oh, do you want to do my show? I'm like, are you just asking me because you think I'm going to put you on my show? Because that's not how it works. Thankfully, I've learned for the shows I book at like clubs that you're like, Hey Nani, you're doing. It's like I just let the venues kind of take over sometimes. I'm like, here are the 5 people that applied. Who do you want to perform? And then I let them pick. So they don't say, that guy sucked. I'm like, well, you picked him. It's a good move. And it also takes me away from other comedians resenting me for not booking them. Although they still fucking will still talk shit.
Well, you told me that story before we started this podcast.
I don't know which one. Oh, yeah.
About, how many people offered to open.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, why didn't you just pick one of the people that offered to open for you? And I was thinking.
For your show.
Yeah. And when no one offers to open for you, it's hard to pick.
Well, I think people in your situation, you knew you were going to sell out your show. You're doing Hey Nani. If people knew that they get to perform for your crowd, for me, let's say Zanies calls me and like, hey, we have a sold out show. Do you want to open for this guy? I'm going to be like, yeah, it's a no brainer.
Yeah.
And even if they say the money's shitty or whatever, because I don't have to do the promotion, which as a musician, as a comedian, you know, is the one part of the job you hate the most, for me at least. And I know it probably was for you too. You don't realize that how important that you forget. The Lincoln Hall, they call you like, hey, do you want to open for Rusted Root? There's no pay.
Yeah.
And you're only doing 20 minutes.
I'll do it in a heartbeat.
Okay, so why don't you understand that that would be the same for you?
I guess I haven't moved on from that same musician that I was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Trying to respect the musician that wants to have that slot.
If you respected them, you would have offered to give someone an opportunity. But see, I feel like you are cutting people off.
Oh,
it's like the Mexican immigrants that are like against immigration, where they're like, they got in illegally, but they're like, but after me, nobody else.
so that mic drop you just did will not be edited on this
I'm
podcast.
I'm keeping that. You need to learn.
Okay.
Are there times that you look back now and that you're like, I fucked up? Like, what are the times after the shows, let's say, where you're like, your temper got the most of you, or you had an opportunity to like do the right thing or didn't? Do you have like regrets of anything, especially after a show or late at night, where you're like, I shouldn't have punched out the sound guy?
Two things come to mind on that.
You don't have to get detailed.
No.
If you don't want to.
The first thing is probably, I don't think I have ever been like hot tempered.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
you get frustrated. I remember you get frustrated and be like, what's wrong? And then you'd be like, what the? I'm like, okay, let's breathe this out.
Yeah.
I remember that about you, but never hot-tempered.
No. One time I remember that I probably got, like, in a way I got screwed over by a venue, that there was a promise. I brought it to the band that I didn't get paid. And the band was like, well, we booked this with you, not with the venue, so you owe us this money.
Right.
And I didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah.
And I went home and I talked to my dad about it. I mean, probably 24, 22 at the time. And he's like, do you think I'm going to work as a graphic artist all year long? And at the end of the month, like, I'm not going to get paid, and talk to someone who promised me they pay X amount of money for the work I'm going to do and blame it on somebody else?
Yeah.
The
deal was with you.
Yeah. You say something, you keep your word.
Yeah.
And that had forever changed the way I looked at playing with my friends, because I don't want that there.
Right.
Like, I don't want that hanging in the ether, you know? I tell you this much, this. And then even at times later, I would, you'd have to lowball it, like 100, 150, and we'd take a percentage out and put it in a band fund. So if I ever got screwed over again, there was something there.
Right.
I would even go to the point to say, hey, we got paid this much extra. I'm putting it in the band fund. And the guys would say, you don't have to tell us how much you got paid. You promised me this.
That's all we
want. Thank you now. And then the only other time would be like how many times I probably drove home when I shouldn't have.
God, but it was a different time back then.
Yes. No, Uber did not exist.
Well, Dave, we covered a lot of grounds here.
Singles Only podcast, I have been a fan for so long.
And everyone talks about that podcast. We got to bring it back.
Again, there is a reason why you did so much for Chicago music community for so many years, and to see you do what you do now, it's been a pleasure. You are fantastic at what you do.
That means a lot.
I'm a fan. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I
mean, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Honestly, like, sitting there, I was watching you in Boulder, and I was just like,
oh, that was really cool that you guys showed up for that show. I did not know you were coming.
Like, my mouth was dropped the whole time. Like, you had no fear. It was just laid back, lean up against the wall.
But I mean, it is crazy that, like, this was never on my radar to do comedy. I mean, you guys know I never did any. It was never on my radar. It just, my life changed.
Universe is weird. Glad to see you following it.
Should have been managing bands still. Dave, where can people find out more about you and your shows when you are performing? In
DaveTamkin.com.
No P, yeah.
No P, TAM, right there on the sign. Paul almost put a P in there just to fuck with me, but I'm glad he didn't.
Thanks for doing the podcast.
Thank
you
very
all
much
for listening to or watching another edition of Why Are You Awake? Go to sleep.